I wanted to kind of do this a little bit different the way Jimmy did it. I have a short little spiel, but then I asked everyone to bring a verse on patience from the scriptures. Did everybody remember their verse?
I did.
No.
We got a few, that's all that matters. And then we'll look at those verses and we'll maybe discuss them a little bit. Because, this Mussar study is, as we've said, is a study to work on the inside of the cup, as Yeshua said. And it's how we interact with the world, how we interact with people around us, and how we interact with ourselves even. And these different midot we go through are very important in that because, as you'll see, they all build on each other and they kind of interact with each other. And this one tonight builds off of humility, the first midot that we studied. And maybe since we skipped to compassion, we can also see how it kind of plays into compassion as well, and we see how they interact with each other. So, patience. When I started studying this midot of patience, I started with Galatians 5:22 and 23. Very famous saying of Paul. Does anybody know it?
I'm sorry. That was the one
Galatians 5:22 and 23.
That was the one I wrote down.
Oh, it. So do you want to read it for everyone?
Galatians 5:22 and 23. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Against such things there is no law.
So, we've all heard this verse before, right? Everybody's heard it.
Oh, yeah.
So in this section of Galatians, Paul is comparing how we live according to the flesh as opposed to how we live according to the Spirit. And his whole point is summed up with how we interact with each other. And in Galatians 5:25, if we live by the Ruach of the Spirit, let us also walk by the Ruach of the Spirit. In order to do that, we have to understand these traits as believers that Paul is listing for us. And now we have an opportunity to focus in on one of them in extreme detail, patience. So, everybody's heard the phrase, patience is a virtue, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what is patience really? If you were asked to define patience, could you do it? Because the scriptures don't define it. Paul doesn't define it in his letters. It's just kind of assumed that we know what patience is. Does anyone want to take a stab at what they think patience is?
Well, go ahead.
Is being willing to wait for something that you want.
Okay.
I had heard it as having a good attitude while waiting for a certain outcome or answer.
I think both of those are kind of right. The dictionary defines it, Mr. Webster, as the ability to accept or tolerate something without getting upset or angry. So, the ability to accept or tolerate something without getting upset or angry.
Well, that knocks me out of driving.
And
Probably most of us.
yeah, there's a fine line between patience and anger. And anger is actually the opposite of patience when you get down to it. And I don't want to look so much into anger right now because come Saturday, and you'll hear a message on anger from the Haftorah Parsha, which I think was great because it played right into this week's Bible study on patience. But tonight let's focus in on patience, the positive aspect. The sages tell us this, that he'll tell us in the Talmud and other writings that we should emulate God. We should try to strive to be like God, And we get that. We're told to be holy as God is holy. So we're supposed to strive and be like Him. And that's carried over into our lives as believers in Yeshua as the Messiah, where we're told to be like Him. One of my favorite verses is in Luke 6:40 that says, a disciple, when fully trained, will be just like his master. So I love that verse because it first reminds me I'm not fully trained because of all my shortfallings, but it also reminds me of my goal, what I'm striving to do is to be like Yeshua. 1 John 2, starting at verse 4, it says, "Whoever says, 'I know him,' but does not keep his commandments is a liar, and the truth is not in him. But whoever keeps his word, in him truly the love of God is perfected. By this we may know that we are in him. Whoever says he abides in him ought to walk in the same way which he walked." So here we have John telling us to be like Yeshua. And 1 Peter chapter 1, starting at verse 13, says, "Therefore, preparing your minds for action and being sober-minded, set your hope fully on the grace that we brought to you at the revelation of Yeshua the Messiah. As obedient children, do not conform to the passions of your former ignorance, but as he who called you is holy, you also be holy in all your conduct, since it is written, 'You shall be holy, for I am holy.'" So again, Peter echoes it, be like Yeshua. So since we're supposed to emulate or be like the Master in all of our ways, we have to understand that patience is one of the biggest ones that we need to understand to follow, because if we're not patient, it has kind of like a domino effect, and it kind of affects everything else. Because if you're not patient, how can you deal with someone who doesn't know Yeshua and you're trying to talk to them and share the gospel with them or show them how to live like him? They're not going to be, perfect or follow him. They're going to fight you a little bit. So you got to have patience. When you have kids and you're trying to emulate to them what it's like to be a godly person, kids will try your every nerve, and you have to be patient, or they see you're not patient and they kind of get that and they learn from it. So the scriptures tell us numerous times to be like God, because God is slow to anger and great in kindness. He's careful not to cross the line between patience and anger with us, but he does have a line. We have to always remember that. The Hebrew word for patience is savlanut, which can also mean tolerate. It also shares the same root word as suffer and endure in Hebrew. So you can see Mr. Webster's definition kind of lines up with the Hebrew.
What's the Hebrew?
Savlanut. The English transliteration is Savlanut. Sometimes being patient is not just tolerating something, but also enduring it and suffering through it. So, does anybody know the difference between tolerating something and enduring through it? And what would be a good example of that?
I think your attitude is slightly different.
Enduring, you're not quite to the point of having that better attitude towards it. You're more resigned, I guess, would be the adjective I would use. You're more resigned to the waiting process.
Well, you can tolerate something and still be angry about it.
Yeah, I was thinking it was
Mhm.
actually kind of opposite.
Yeah.
I was thinking that tolerate is less, I know it's going to sound weird, but tolerating something is less tolerable in a way than, what was the other word?
Enduring.
Enduring. Yeah, because enduring, it's like, okay, I'm accepting this sucks, but I accept it.
Yeah. So what's an example of real life of that?
Sorry.
Now, not everyone go at the same time.
Come on.
No, seriously.
Everybody's impatient all the time.
I tolerate traffic every day.
Yeah.
I tolerate stupid behind the wheel every day. And I see multiple examples every day when I'm driving the bus. And there are some that are really, as I was telling Sharon earlier, there's some that are just not thinking, and then there's some that go beyond stupid behind the wheel. I tolerate them. But if I get behind a rig who's just slow, I'm patient with them because
Takes a while to get to the gears.
they're just a slow vehicle. They can't speed up it so fast. So I don't have an issue with them. But I do have an issue with stupid behind the wheel, especially when they're holding the phone. That's when my anger's like,
It can lead to road rage.
Not with the bus, but I had someone run me off the road last week.
Oh, gee.
In the bus?
Yes, full of kids.
Oh, man.
Oh my God.
Because he decided he was gonna pass me even with the car coming and didn't care.
And talking on the phone, too, I bet.
I didn't see if he was on the phone. All I know is I hit the shoulder, hit the brakes, the car coming at us hit the shoulder, hit the brakes, and he missed both of us by inches. So, yes, my patience wasn't there.
Yes. Rightfully so.
I admit it. But would that be a good example?
Yeah.
Because I really am short with people who just get stupid, but I'm totally patient with vehicles that are just by nature slow. That doesn't bother me.
It does bother me at times,
Yeah. I could care
because
less.
if I'm really in a hurry or whatever, yes, I understand that they can't do anything about it, but it still ticks me off at times.
See, that doesn't bother me because they have an excuse. I have no tolerance for people who have no excuse.
Well, what can I say?
That's a good example. So, in Romans 12:12, this verse, I always have a history with this verse. I remember helping my grandfather plant corn in the summer, or the spring really. And my job was to fill up his hoppers of fertilizer when he'd take the tractor out and plow, and it would spread it, and then he'd come back, I'd fill up the hoppers again. But while he was out, I would memorize verses, and I remember one spring, as this was a verse I was memorizing, is rejoice in your hope, be patient in your troubles, and continue steadfast in prayer. Now, what do these three things have in common? Rejoice in your hope, be patient in your troubles, and continue steadfast in prayer.
Well, the prayer helps you with the first two.
Yep.
The focus is more on God in each one of them than in what our situation is.
Yeah.
If you're rejoicing in your hope, you're kind of rejoicing. It kind of tells you you're waiting on something, right? Because you're hoping for something. And usually when you're waiting on something, you've got to be patient. And a lot of times when you're waiting on something, a lot of troubles pop up. At least in my experience, they do. They get in the way, kind of like potholes. We all know potholes in this town.
Yeah, to say the least.
It seems as though patience has a lot to do with driving.
Twice I found two canyons I fell into and thought the whole car went into it.
There's quite a few craters out there, yes.
Yeah.
I find that I am more patient at home than I am out on the job also.
Why is that?
I will,
Why is that?
less pressures, deadlines,
The wife will hurt you.
Family's more important. Incentive.
well,
Patient with his daughter.
the,
He's real patient with you. I don't get it.
it's, things kind of roll off my back at home because, there aren't cut deadlines, somebody, doesn't give me a list and say, okay, this has got to be done by this time at home, whereas out on the job, I'm given a deadline of this has got to get done, and
So you don't have honey-do lists?
oh yes,
Yeah, but there's no pressure on them.
Right.
Like at work will give deadlines, where at home you just get it done whenever.
and then
Yeah, he's got a crazy boss because his boss, he'll have his day all lined out. And then his boss gets some wild, crazy ideas of what else he wants him to do. And, oh no, you got to do this first. Well, this stuff is lined out. These people are expecting him to show up. Now, the boss just called him, gave him a whole bunch more stuff, just messed up his day. And he does that so frequently that you can see the struggle. And being the wife, I was telling him, leave it outside the door when you come home. But I do let him talk. If the venting gets too loud, I have a frying pan. But
Cast iron one even.
But yeah, because there's just so much stress.
And then,
So home has become a place, and I have to teach him, home is a place where you leave it out here, you come in here, you can tell me about your day, don't take it out on me. But I'm finding more and more that he's free and safe to talk about his frustration. He's less and less frustrated and much more patient at home. So I think you need a safe place to
I'm in
express
charge of-
stress
I'm in
so
charge of
that
5
you can
crews.
obtain patience.
Okay, and I have certain expectations of how jobs are supposed to be done, and communicate that to them, and then they come back and check on them, and they don't do, they think that they know it better, and their way is better, and so then I usually end up cleaning up after them.
Oh,
Okay.
that's what they
And
think.
so,
Yeah, yeah,
and,
it happens.
talking back, boys talking back to me, yeah, that just, yeah. You know,
Yeah.
the old temperature just, or that, or, I'll be out working on a project, and I look back and they're still sitting in the truck.
Oh, yeah, thumb exercise is so important, you know that. Thumb exercise.
I'm making those little things to hang off the mirror in the truck that says, "Patience is a virtue, honey."
But that's a good point, though, because a lot of times we think patience is waiting on something, but most of the time, patience is enduring a situation, you know, and a lot of times it's a situation beyond our control. And a lot of things that stress us out are things we can't change if we wanted to, like
Okay.
bad drivers.
That's like the definition of stress.
Yeah,
Like the definition of stress is.
yeah,
Does everybody else know the definition? No. The conflict between the mind and the body to choke the living out of someone that desperately deserves it.
well, that's a good point. You kind of leading where I was going.
Yeah.
So, because, you know, a lot of times, things we can't do, we always say just let go and let God. Give it over to God. We can't do nothing about it. Give it to Him. And a lot of times we say that we're giving something over to God, but we really haven't because it's still playing in our mind and our hearts. Keeps you up at night. But you say you've given it to God, but have you really? I mean, how do you deal with the connection between saying you're letting something go, and letting God deal with it, and getting the peace of mind about it?
I write it down. I call it the whatever list. My whatever list is the things that are, causing the stress, things I can't fix, can't change, and, you just want to strangle somebody. It's a good day if you didn't, but, And so I came up with my whatever list, and so I would write it out on my whatever list because I can't fix it, I can't change it, it's tearing me up. So it goes on the whatever list, and then I just take that whatever list and just toss it. And I find that the writing it, the mind connection, it's on paper, I threw it away. It helps. I mean, it's not the 100% cure, but it actually really helps to let it go. Not to mention I have this big poster in my kitchen of this puppy dog that says, "Cast your worries onto the Lord." So, but yeah, that's just,
That works.
it's a hand-eye, working with your own brain to say, I can't fix it. I let it go, write it,
The difference
toss it.
between giving it to God and telling God how to fix
That's good.
Very good.
Good,
it. Okay?
Janet.
How many
That's
times
good.
do we give it to God? Like, all right, God, this is driving me nuts. I'm going to give it to you, but this is what I want you to do to
Yeah,
fix
if you
it.
would just do this and this and that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or,
Thinking that God
That's a good
resigned
one.
for the
So
day
would
and
that-
you're gonna take over.
Not quite qualified for patience.
Yeah, I think that would qualify as impatience because
Okay,
you're not really enduring it so much.
exactly.
Yep. I was
You
reading.
gotta be careful about saying giving it to God,
Yeah.
because if you give it to Him with instructions, then you're really not fully giving it.
Yeah.
That's why I just throw it away in my garbage can that sits right under the poster, cast your cares upon the Lord.
So get this.
And how many times do we give something to the Father and say, oh, no, I gotta have it back?
Yeah, we do that. We'll go back and pull it out and go, no, I'm going to worry about this some more. And
So get this. I was listening to a song on the way home from work that somebody was sent in to be considered, and they just took this psalm and they put the bluegrass music, which was quite interesting. But the psalm, it got me thinking, and it fits in here. So listen to this psalm. It's Psalm 13.
Which one? 13?
I'm going to start in verse 2, because the first one's just like first verse is just like a who wrote it thing. So verse 2. How long, Adonai, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long must I have cares in my soul and daily sorrow in my heart? How long will my enemy triumph over me? Look at me and answer me, God. Light up my eyes, and I'll sleep in death. Or else my enemy will say, I've overcome him, and my foes will rejoice because I am shaken. But I trust in your loving kindness, chesed. My heart rejoices in your salvation. I'll sing to Adonai because he has been good to me. So here David is stressed about something, obviously, as most of his psalms are.
Yeah.
And it sounds like he's being impatient here because he's saying, God, I'm waiting, you're doing nothing. Come on, do something. But then he ends it with his answer. I'll trust in your loving kindness, your chesed. And my heart rejoices in your salvation. So he's obviously given it over to God at the end, but he had to work through it. So maybe part of getting to that place of patience and enduring is actually working through all that stuff that naturally comes to us, because it's pretty natural to be impatient and to be stressed out about things and let it just keep twirling in our mind. I bet you everybody in here has done that. I do.
Oh, yeah. It's like what Joyce Myers always says, why, God, why? When, God, when?
Look at Abraham when he was waiting for Isaac to be born.
Yep, Abraham tried to help God instead of wait on God, and he ended up with the issue that still plagues us today.
Yes. I'm sure that he would have probably freaked out if he had realized how far-reaching that choice was.
So a lot of times, it comes down to a choice of being impatient or pushing off blame and anger on somebody or something, finding a target. Maybe we think we're the target, and that really can bring about a lot of impatience when we think we're the target. But at some point we have to realize, like David here, that God's in control and he's going to take care of it, and we have to just let him take care of it. It may not be handled the way we want it to be all the time. Sometimes God finishes out a situation in a way we don't want it to be finished out, but it's in his best interest and not ours. I always like to remember Isaiah 55, in verse 6. Seek Adonai while he may be found. Call on him while he is near. Let the wicked forsake his way, and the unrighteous one his thoughts. Let him return to Adonai, so he may have compassion on him, and to our God, for he will abundantly pardon. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, nor are your ways my ways. It is a declaration for Adonai. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, my ways are higher than your ways, and my thoughts your thoughts. So, a lot of times we think of ourselves as kind of like, I don't know if I got this out of the book or where, but a lot of times we think of ourselves as the leading actor in a movie. Everything's centered around us. We're the center of attraction, But we're not always the lead actor in the story. And we have to realize that sometimes, but we always think we are. And I won't divulge on that too much, because then it gets into the Haftorah portion of my message on Saturday. So come on Saturday for the rest of that.
Sneak preview.
Yeah. So everything doesn't happen to us, and we're not always the victim, and we're not the center of the universe, and patience does require a lot of humility, as we learned in the first Medot. So how can we take humility, what we learned about, and carry it over into practicing patience? What was the definition of humility? Anybody remember?
occupying our rightful spot.
Okay. That's
I
right.
think mine is
Yeah, so when you think of other people more than yourself, you're occupying your spot. Let's use driving as an example, because that's a place where we all get impatient. Let's say you're going to work and you're running late, and all of a sudden you hit a traffic jam, and you start getting all, oh, I'm going to be late. This is terrible. You get all upset, and it's just stressing you out. That would be impatience. But if maybe you stop and think, well, what's causing this traffic jam? Maybe somebody up there's had a wreck and they're really hurt. Maybe I need to pray for whoever's hurt up there, because you're thinking more of the other person than yourself. So, what's another example? Anybody got another example of how to use humility to have patience? What's another place we are impatient a lot?
In line.
Okay.
You
So-
get in a line and somebody up front is taking forever.
So
And
let's
you've
think
got two
about
choices.
let's think about the other person.
Think
I
about
know
it.
what you're saying.
You want to go up there and smack them and say, hurry up?
So let's think about the other person. What?
Or the person who has a cart full in the 10-item or less line.
Yes, yes.
Well, worse than that is the person that, after all this, they've got the 562 coupons.
Oh,
Some of
yeah.
those coupons they actually used, some they didn't, so they have to,
And they have to sort through all of them
And
to
you're
find
going-
the right one.
why me?
No, the worst is the lady, and I told Sharon this, at Walmart in the express line. Now, express
Oh.
usually means like go through fast. She had 20 items, and with each item, she stopped the clerk and sorted through 3 different papers to price match. She took 15 to 20 minutes in the express
Oh.
line. There were 10 people behind me, including me, that really wanted to chunk the out of her.
So that's a good example.
So
How can we use that example?
There's an
So here it is, instead of going, why me, when they pull out all those coupons, you need to look at that poor checker going,
Well, actually, I did pity her.
The poor
because she was
checker.
doing pretty well.
Okay, we can think about the checker, but how can we think
Her,
about?
exactly.
But how
I
can we
actually
think
felt
about
sorry for
the
checker.
person who is doing the coupons?
they have to pinch every penny. They can't afford to they've got to pinch every penny so that they can feed their family.
That, yeah, or maybe they're pinching the penny so they can afford the medication they need to stay alive.
But why don't they pinch the penny in a regular line, not the express line?
But did it have to
I'm sorry.
Did it have to be
extreme
be extreme couponers?
Careful,
Yeah, she was-
y'all.
The Bible?
That's her.
But it still comes down. Did it have to be me? Did it have to, what did I have to pick? This one?
So how would I be patient with her?
Surrender it to the Father. I choose to die to self in this area.
Yeah.
That's really all you can do.
Well, I chose not to say anything because she had a little child in the cart, and I thought it would be not a good show to the child just how stupid her mother is being. So, so
No,
does that count?
there's some hesed.
Does that count?
There's some hesed. A few years ago, I met a guy who said this phrase to me, and it had a big impact on me. He said, when trying to come to an agreement with someone, with your fellow man, it's always best to come to a fair outcome. And what is fair is always what's best benefits the other person. So if we train ourselves to first go to that frame of mind, to always look out for the other person before ourselves, not to the point where we hurt ourselves or give away all our money so we end up under a bridge, but what's fair, that we're called to be fair. Love them as we love ourselves. But it takes training. It's not just something we can do. We have to train ourselves to do it and be conscious of it. Because if you're like me, the first thing you always go to is what's best for number one, and be impatient with people and think about how it's going to affect me.
I think our society really emphasizes look out for number one too.
Yeah. Yeah, society has a big impact on how we live our lives, because it trains us, because it bombards us. You know, the best way to train yourself for anything is repetition. And when we're constantly being shown and forced selfishness and looking out for ourselves, you know, it trains us. You know, it does. And it affects us.
Well, we also believe the things that we say. It's like when we speak things out, if you speak out things that are positive, our ears hear that.
Mm-hmm.
Just as much as our ears hear, I am so healed, or whatever it is that we're saying, our ears hear that. And we believe our own crap.
People hear a lie long enough, they believe it. And the same is said for truth. They hear good kindness often enough, they'll believe it.
Okay. So I brought a verse on patience. So James 5. Let's look at it.
James 5, what?
Hang on. James 5, 7 and 8. So be patient, brothers and sisters, until the coming of the Lord. See how the farmer waits for the precious fruit of the earth, being patient for it until it receives the early and late rain. You also be patient. Strengthen your hearts, because the coming of the Lord is near. So here is comparing patience to a farmer waiting for his crops to grow. You know, they don't just sprout out overnight, and all of a sudden you have a corn stalk full of corn ears. You have to wait for it to grow, and then bud, and then start to grow. And it takes time, and it takes patience to wait on it. The same way with waiting on the Lord, and what we're supposed to be doing while we're waiting on His return is spreading the good news and the news of the kingdom and how it's come. But that was this message: repent, for the kingdom of heaven is here. And we're supposed to spread that message. And in doing that, we are showing an example of how kingdom citizens live in the kingdom. And we have to learn and train ourselves how to do that, which we have to be patient for, because we're not going to get it overnight. Nobody becomes a perfect follower of Yeshua automatically. You know, it's a growing process, like the crops grow, and the farmer has to wait on it. So we have to be patient with ourselves, be patient with each other, because we're all going to mess up. And one of the most frustrating things about life is other people. So, who else has a verse they brought that we haven't read yet? We read yours.
Mm-hmm.
Read this one.
James got one, I got one.
Who? Mike, you got a verse?
I have two of them. I really love Proverbs.
Okay. Proverbs what?
19:11 is the first one. A man's wisdom gives him patience. It is to his glory to overlook an offense.
Amen.
To overlook an offense. That is surely takes patience. Especially when somebody offends us directly.
And then Proverbs 15:18. And this is kind of what I talked about earlier, about being kind of two different people. One person out on the job site, and then a different person at home. A hot-tempered man stirs up dissension. That's me at the job site. But a patient man calms a quarrel.
Mm.
That's a good one.
And that's Proverbs 15:18.
I really like your first one.
Yeah, but that kind of deals with dealing with other people, you know, and remembering that we don't always know the full story of what's going on in that person's life. You know, maybe someone's short with us or angry when they speak, and we've done nothing to make them angry, and we don't know, well, maybe something happened to them earlier that day that's got them in this mood and they just can't help it. You know? Who knows?
Yeah, see, that would have been my second pick. 1 Corinthians 13. Love is patient.
Oh, you took mine.
Love is patient, you know.
Okay, we'll talk about it. Love is patient. Love is
Oh,
kind.
love is kind, loves not keep illicit wrongs, does not resent. I mean, it goes on, but and I don't remember all of it, but that's what I thought was, you know, the first the love chapter.
Mm-hmm. And it does take love to be patient. Because, you know, what's love? Biblical love, not hippie love.
Agape love.
If you need patience, after you've done the will of God, you may receive the promise. I don't know where it is. So.
That's Hebrews 6.
It's Hebrews 10.
No, it's Hebrews 6.
Is it?
That's her verse.
Oh,
What?
okay.
Read the verse.
There's another one,
It's
Hebrews
actually
10.
6, 11, and 12. It's hurrying up the way. However, we want each of you to keep showing the same diligence right up to the end, when your hope will be realized, so that you will not become sluggish, but will be imitators of those who by their trust and patience are receiving what has been promised.
Yeah, it's good.
And there it had a connection of patience and hope again.
And sometimes it's very hard to be patient and hopeful at the same time. Because if it takes a long time, it wears on your patience. Even though you're hoping, and it's very easy for you to let go of hope.
Yeah. Well, I find it easier to be patient when there's something that I see, I have my eye on, that I'm hoping for, like a goal that I'm going for. You know, because it makes it easier to be patient with situations if I know, well, this is temporary, that's where I'm headed, you know.
But the issue is, look at Abraham. 25 years. If you're looking forward to something and it takes that long, I guarantee you're going to have some issues along the way.
For sure. For sure. We all falter in that. But do you think if he didn't have that promise, or if he wasn't told, you know, it would be in his lifetime, like he was told it would be in his lifetime, he would have, you know, been as patient as he was, even though he tried to help God out. You know. Because at one point, I bet you he kind of thought, well, maybe this is going to happen, but it's going to happen some other way, I don't know. Because God had to tell him that it would be his and Sarah's seed specifically.
Because time caused him to be tempted to doubt.
Yep. That happens to all of us. So, that's all I had. Does anybody want to share anything else about patience before I give you some homework?
I don't agree with don't ask for patience, because I think that's a bad attitude.
No, you should pray for patience.
Well, exactly, but I mean,
If
to
you understand
ask, to not pray, it's like, oh, don't ask for patience. It's like, well, to me, that's a stupid attitude.
It's a misunderstanding of what biblical patience is. Biblical patience, I think we could see, is pretty much, you know, one, thinking of other people more than yourself. You know, love your neighbors yourself. And also, biblical patience is knowing that God's in control. I mean, God's on his throne. He's taking care of you. And he's got this. You know. And knowing that can help us endure through hard times. But we all falter in it.
I think it's like we're told from the beginning, and you see God's plan in all of it, seed, time, harvest. So that farming term, you plant the seed. There has to be time before that seed's going to grow. during that time, you're patiently waiting for your seeds to grow and hoping that rains don't come and flood it out, that the birds don't come and eat all your seed. So seed time harvest has been from the beginning. And I think there's a lot there about planting seed, having hope, waiting patiently for a harvest.
Well, there's one other thing that comes up, and that is that when something happens and your patience is tried, the first instant of irritation or whatever it is, you know, you have that moment to decide, am I in agreement with this or am I gonna not agree with this? In other words, when that first flash happens, am I gonna agree with being pissed off, or am I going to say, no, I'm not gonna come into agreement with this. I will not come into agreement with this.
Yeah.
You said something interesting about goals, because I have a lot of goals written down, and I update it, cross things off, stuff that they got accomplished every about twice a month. And the thing about goals is that you can cross this one off. I still got 10 to go, but I can put those 10, okay, onto next month, okay? Whereas, like I said, there's difference between goals and deadlines. So, like I said, I have a lot of goals, so, but like I said, yeah, I have to treat them differently, saying, okay, I'm doing the best I can to obtain these goals, okay? But like I said, goals can be extended, whereas a lot of times deadlines can't. It's just like, you have to be at your first bus stop at a certain time, okay? And have school at a certain time.
Tell him that.
So for homework this week, I didn't do these little sheets that Jimmy does. So write a short little blurb, doesn't have to be long, maybe 5-6 sentences, of a time this week when you found yourself being either impatient or patient, how you could have handled it the opposite way.
I could write a book on that one.
That's like a constant all day long thing.
I would have been patient.
Sure. Do we get extra credit if it becomes a novel?
So if you're patient, you should write how you could have been impatient.
Yeah, I think it's kind of important to understand, what leads to being impatient and how to avoid it, But if you're impatient, it's obviously important to understand how you could have been patient. At least that's how it always helps me, is if I think about, okay, I was patient with that person, but it could have went the other way very easily. And it helps me understand where that line was at so I can avoid it next time as well.
You want us to do both
You know,
or just one?
Just one, with one or the other. Whatever.
Do you get extra credit if you do it both ways?
No.
Darn it.
But, between now and next Tuesday, I'm sure all of us will have multiple examples we can use.
The doctors would never be patient, would never have patience if they didn't have patience.